Hi there, thank you for joining me today. I am Skills from skillsondemand.online. In this tutorial, I'll be taking you through how to build a dynamic and interactive Excel dashboard that you're seeing now. From this tutorial, let's learn how to create a dynamic web analytics dashboard using the details from a test website on web traffic and visitor information. We'll be analyzing details such as total visitors, total unique visitors, total bounce rate, device used, operating systems used, monthly and yearly bounce rate, traffic sources, new and returning visitor status, visitors categorized by countries, and top and popular pages, all connected to each other to give us an impressive and dynamic Excel dashboard in few simple steps. Before we start, let's download the workbook file attached under this section. This is the data we'll be using for our dashboard. There are over 100,000 rows of sample site visit data. Our data is in tabular format with a date range from December 2017 to January 2015, covering a span of 2 years. The data is classified by date, country, traffic channels, visitor type, device type, OS type, total pages, page views, engagement rate, top pages, visitors, visitor count, bounce rate, new session and time on site. To build an efficient and dynamic dashboard, we will use Excel functions such as formulas, pivot tables, Sparklines, slicers, pivot charts such as area, bar, pie, line, and map. We have created this course using Excel 2016. However, you can use any Excel version such as 2010, 2013 or 2016. So what are you waiting for? Let's get started. I believe you have the workbook opened and ready. Our workbook has sheets such as README, Data, Pivot and Charts, and Dashboard. Before we start, ensure all data is structured and formatted in an Excel table, which means date should be formatted as a date, text should be formatted as a text, number should be formatted as a number, percentage should be formatted as a percentage. Ensure there are no blank rows or columns in your data. A structured data is the first step in building a dashboard. When the table data is refreshed, all the changes that affect formulas, pivot tables, pivot charts are updated automatically. Let's format the data to an Excel table. Use the keyboard shortcut key Ctrl+A, which select all the data. Then Ctrl+T, which will create the table. Excel will give you a prompt with details of the data range. If your data has header, click on My Table as Header and press OK. Now, the table is ready. Let's give our table a name as Data. You can customize the table using the built-in Excel table styles. Before we create our first pivot table, you should always keep in mind one thing. As pivot table grows, it might overlap with each other, which will affect the way the dashboard is supposed to perform. Hence, sufficient space should be left between two pivot tables, or it's better if you add each pivot table under different sheets. Now, let's create our first pivot table that shows visitor details. Let's select the data. Using keyboard shortcut key Ctrl+A. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Table. Select existing sheet. Select the location and press OK. Now, Our pivot field list is activated. We can find all the headers of our data under this field. Drag and drop dates to row field. In Excel 2016, the dates are automatically grouped. Let's drag and drop years to filter field. Remove quarters and keep only date in the row field. Next, drag and drop visitors to value field. Visit count to value field. If it's a text value that we drag and drop at value field, Excel takes the value as count. And if it's a number value that we drag and drop to value field, Excel takes the value as sum. Sum of visit count tells us the amount of unique traffic to our website. It could be a new user or a user visiting the website from a new device. Sum of visitors tells us how many times people have visited our website. Maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times, and maybe 100 times. Select the report layout as outlined from Design tab. Now, our pivot table is ready. Let's create our pivot chart. To create our pivot chart, click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Area Chart. Press OK. Remove field buttons. Change the legend position to top. Remove grid lines. Let's change the axis position to top. So right click, Format Axis. Under Axis option, under Labels, change the label position as high. Let's change the font color to black and make it bold. Now, let's change the color. For sum of visitors, let's keep the color as black. For the sum of visit count, let's keep the color as green. Let's add a chart title as Visitor Details. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's move and resize the chart to Dashboard sheet. Interesting, isn't it? Let's create a pivot table that shows device type that I use to access our web pages. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop years to filter field, device type to row field, and device type again to value field. Here, since the value is a text, Excel took the default function as count. Our pivot table is ready. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Donut Chart. Remove field buttons. Let's change the legend position to the top and remove titles. Let's add data label. Let's add shapes to the data label. Let's format the data labels and select the value as percentage. Change the text color to black and make it bold. Now, let's add colors to the chart. Select the colors you prefer. Ensure it matches with the remaining charts in your dashboard. Adjust the data labels. Let's add 4 icons from the built-in icon list. So click on Insert tab. Click on Icons. Select the 4 icons. Resize and place it inside the chart. Group the icons together. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's move and resize the chart to dashboard sheet. Simple, isn't it? Let's create our third pivot table that shows OS type that is used to access our web pages. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop years to filter field. OS type to row field. And OS type again to value field. Since the value is a text, Excel took the default function as count. Our pivot table is ready. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Donut Chart. Remove field buttons. Let's change the legend position to top and remove titles. Let's add data labels and add shapes to the data label. Let's format the data labels and select the value as percentage. Let's adjust the data label. Change the font color to black and make it bold. Now, let's add colors to the chart. Select the colors you prefer. Ensure it matches with the remaining charts in your dashboard. Let's add an icon from the built-in icon list. Click on Insert tab. Click on Icons. Select the icon. Place it inside the chart. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's move and resize the chart to dashboard shade. Simple as that. Let's create our fourth pivot table that shows monthly bounce rate. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop date to row field. Bounce rate to value field. Remove quarters and years. Now, add one more row to replicate the grand total value. This we will use later for our shapes. Sum of bounce rate tells us how many times people have visited our website, viewed a particular page, and left immediately. Bounce rate is an important metric and is directly connected with engagement rate, which means this will tell you if your website is engaging enough to retain the visitor. If the bounce rate is high, you need to fix the gaps, modify and update the content of your website to make it more engaging and appealing to the user. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Line Chart with markers. Delete field buttons. Delete grid lines and legends. Let's add shapes to the markers. Click on Insert tab. Click on Shapes. Select a circle. Change the shape color as green. Add effect to the shape. Resize the shape and copy paste it on the markers. Let's add a title as Monthly Bounce Rate. Let's move and resize the chart to dashboard sheet. Our pivot chart is ready. Impressive, isn't it? Let's create our fifth pivot table that shows monthly bounce rate percentage. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. In this example, let's use the Excel function Calculated Field. Click on the cell where the data is. Click on Analyze tab. Click on Field Items and Sets. Click on Calculated Field. In the first field, let's add a name as Bounce Rate Percentage. In the second field, let's add the formula as bounce rate divided by visitors. So from the drop down, double click on the bounce rate. Add a division symbol and double click on visitors. Click on add buttons and press OK. Let's format the field to 2 decimals and percentage. From the value field, remove sum of bounce rate. Now, replicate the grand total value. Now we have our monthly bounce rate percentage ready. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Clustered Column Chart. Hide field buttons. Remove grid lines, legends and axis value. Let's reposition the axis label to high. Change the bar color to black. Let's add data label and add shapes to the data label. Change the font color to black and make it bold. Let's add the title as Monthly Bounce Rate Percentage. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's move and resize the chart to dashboard sheet. Simple, isn't it? Now, let's create our 6th pivot table that shows countries where the website visitors are from. Let's copy paste the previous pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop years to filter field, country to row field, and country again to value field. Value in the value field is reflecting as count since the value is a text. Let's sort the value as largest to smallest. Let's give a reference to this pivot table in our dashboard sheet. In the dashboard sheet, insert the header as country and count of visitors. To replicate these values, let's add a formula as equal to pivot table value. Drag and drop formula to below rows. Change the table background color as black and font color as white. Make the text as bold. Now, let's add a data bar. Select the value. Click on Conditional Formatting. Click on Data Bar. Select Solid Fill. Select the style you prefer. Press OK. Now, let's create our map chart. In the pivot and chart sheet, let's copy paste only the values and headers from previous pivot table. Under the count of countries, let's change the values as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, select the data. Click on Insert tab. Click on Map Chart under All Chart. Wait this because sometimes Map Chart gives you this error message when it's directly connected to a pivot table like this. Now, let's realign the map chart with a pivot table. So right click, select the data. Select the data range from the pivot table. Press OK. Let's add a title as Sales by Country. Let's add design and style elements. Let's change the title color as white and make it bold. Let's delete our old data. Our map chart is ready. Let's move and resize this chart to the dashboard sheet. Now, we know from which country our website visitors are from. Impressive, isn't it? Now, let's create our 7th pivot table for Sparklines that shows visitor trend in each month from each country. Let's copy paste the previous pivot table. Let's retain the existing selection. Drag and drop date to column field, years to filter field, and remove quarter value. Remove the grand total. Now, in the dashboard sheet, add a header as Monthly Visitors. Select the rows to add a sparkline. Sparklines are mini charts placed in mini cells, each representing a row of data in your selection. Now, click on Insert tab. Under Sparkline, we have 3 options: line, column, and win and loss. Let's select line. Select the data for your Sparkline. Press OK. Let's add some styles using Excel built-in styles. Let's change the weight to make it more visible. Now, our Sparklines are ready and shows trends in each month from each country. Simple, isn't it? Let's create our 8th pivot table that shows top visited pages. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop top pages to row field, top pages to value field. Since page is a text, Excel took the default value as count. Let's arrange the value from large to small. Now let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Under All Chart, select Clustered Bar Chart. Hide field buttons. Remove grid lines and axis values along with legends. Let's add a title as Top Visited Pages. Let's add a data label and add shapes to the data label. Change the font color to black and make it bold. Change the bar color to black. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's resize and move the chart to the dashboard sheet. Now, let's create our ninth pivot table that shows visitor types. Is it a new visitor or a returning visitor? So let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop visitor type to row field, visitor type to value field. Since visitor type is a text, Excel took the default value as count. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Pie Chart. Hide field buttons. Change the legend position to top. Let's add data label and add shapes to the data label. Change the data label value to percentage. Let's change pie chart color. Let's keep black for return visitors and green to new visitors. Change the font color to black and make it bold. Our pivot chart is ready. Let's move and resize the chart to dashboard sheet. Simple, isn't it? Now, finally, let's create our 10th pivot table that shows traffic sources. Let's understand which medium drives visitors to our site. Let's copy paste the earlier pivot table. Clear the existing selection. Drag and drop traffic channels to row field, traffic channels to value field. Since traffic channels is a text, Excel took the default value as count. Arrange the value from large to small. Let's create our pivot chart. Click on the pivot table. Click on Insert tab. Click on Pivot Chart. Under All Chart, select Clustered Bar Chart. Hide field buttons. Add a title as Traffic Sources. Remove legends. Remove grid lines and access value. Add a data label and add shapes to the data label. Change the font color to black. Make it bold. Change the bar color to green. Now, our pivot chart is ready. Let's resize and move the chart to dashboard sheet. Now, let's add dynamic shapes to our dashboard. First, let's change the background color as green. Next, let's add a shape. So click on Insert tab. Click on Shape. Select a rectangle. Adjust the rectangle size to match the chart area. Let's add a text box and add a text as Dashboard Pro. Let's add an icon. So click on Insert tab. Under Icon, select an icon. Let's add one more text box and insert the text as Web Analytics. Add an effect to the shape. Change the background color and text color. Make the text as bold. Remove shape outline. Now, let's add two text boxes. For the first text box, insert the text as years. For the second text box, let's add a formula in the formula bar that links to the first pivot table filter field. The formula is equal to first pivot table filter value. Change the font color, background color, and make the text bold. Let's add a line shape below the value. Now, let's add one more rectangle shape. Change the shape color as black. Add a text box. Insert the text as total visitors. Now, insert one more text box. In the formula bar, add a formula as equal to total visitor value, which is available from pivot table 1. Change the font color and make the text bold. Now, let's replicate the shape and text box 3 more times. So select the shape and text box and copy paste the same. Now, for the second shape, let's add a text as total unique visitors. Next, let's add a formula as equal to total unique visitor value, which is available from pivot table 1. Change the font color and make the text bold. For the third shape, let's add a text as total bounce rate. Now, let's add a formula as equal to total bounce rate, which is available from our pivot table 4. Change the font color and make the text bold. Finally, for the fourth shape, let's add a text as total bounce rate percentage. In the formula bar, add a formula as equal to total bounce rate percentage, which is available from pivot table 5. Change the font color and make the text bold. Now, let's learn how to make our dashboard interactive and dynamic in nature. Or let's learn how to make the charts come active using slicers. Slicers are customized visual filters that help you filter tables, pivot charts, and cube function in a click. Slicers are available in Excel 2013 and above. You can add a slicer to either pivot table or regular tables. To add a slicer, click on any pivot table or chart. Click on Insert tab. Click on Slicers. Here you will see all your headers listed with a checkbox. Select the header you prefer to select as a base item to filter your data. In this example, let's select years and traffic channels. Press OK. Now we have two slices ready. You can add design and style elements like change of color to your slicer. In our slicers, we see items with no data. For example, our data does not have 2018 details. However, the same is reflecting in the slicer. So let's remove it. So click on the slicer, right click, click on the option. Select slicer settings. Here, click on the checkbox hide items with no data and press OK. Now, only the relevant data is reflecting in our slicer. Let's rearrange the slicers. Now, it's time to connect the slicers with the charts. So click on the slicer. Click on Option. Click on Report Connections. Here we see all our pivot tables and pivot charts names. Let's select all of them and press OK. Repeat the same steps for the second slicer. Next, let's lock both the slicers in place to avoid unnecessary resize and movements. So click on the slicer, right click, select Size and Properties. Under Position and Layout, select Disable Resizing and Moving for both slicers. Now, Our slicer will remain as constant and will not change based on workbook or other pivot table or pivot chart movements. Let's refresh our dashboard and check if the data is updated correctly. Next, click on the slicers. Let's select year as 2016. Now our dashboard displayed data pertaining to 2016. If we select 2017, data pertaining to 2017 will reflect in our dashboard. Simple, isn't it? To unfilter the selection, click on Clear Filter option on top of your dashboard. Now our dashboard is complete. Simple, isn't it? Hope you enjoyed this tutorial.